Shalom and welcome. We are going to go over today this thing called life. The life in between the starting, the ending, and the good fight. I've spent a lot of time the last week wrestling around with different things and different parts of life and different aspects of life that you really don't know. There's things that you go to the funeral home and you really expect them to treat you different. You expect them to treat you nicely and kindly, and it's more of a, hey, take a number, go on, and we'll take your money, and it's more of a that type of thing. With all that being said, I would love to help the body, as me and Stephanie, as I hopefully, humbly have done in the last 4 or 5 years, if not the last 12, 13, 14, 15. With all that being said, that this thing called life, the scripture is clear. It says, when you hate this life, then that's gain. And the more I live this life, especially when you lose loved ones and you lose so much, I realize that this life is temporary. And especially 40 some years, and you expect to be older, you expect to, have that full gray head or no hair or however it comes out to be, and to walk along and say, hey honey, and what, I can't hear you, and all these things that we had sit in the parking lot and sometimes watch the elder people do. Well, as far as our life story and what is written, then we only know what we have. We can only go to those dates that we have. Yeshua said to her, I am the resurrection and the life. The one who believes in me will live, even though they die, and whoever lives, believing in me, will never die. Do you believe this? And I would say, sadly, a lot of times that what we have ran into in being invited to churches and other places, that we don't take a lot of things seriously, or I should say they don't take a lot of this seriously. That Yeshua came and he was beat, he was spit upon, he did all these things for our salvation. And for us to look upon that, it sounds great, it sounds awesome, but when we actually go through those trials and tribulations, it is very hurtful. It's very hurtful when you hear people say things like, well, we told you about that curse of the law. When people come and say, well, we knew that was going to happen eventually. It was just a matter of time. It was just a matter of this. So when life is really beating you up and people are kicking you, that really doesn't make it any better. It really doesn't make any more happiness and joy. And we know there's joy. Throughout this week, I've been so thankful to the Creator for the time that we did spend, for the time that we did have together, for the time that we shared. We had some great ups and some great downs. We had some great life and some beautiful things. Of course, there's things that you wanted to do better. Through this, we always believed that we would be on 80 years old and doing these things, but we don't know that. And how many people get up and go to work and they never come home? How many people go to bed and never wake up? And when these things happen, we have to rest assured that we are ready. And I believe a lot of people in life, they're playing churchianity and they don't know the response. They don't know what is really coming to them. It's like they're blinded because they want to go. And trust me, if there's a time I wanted to go have a shelter and go have friends and go, it's been this week. It's been this week that I would just want to go, and even in the falsity of it, go into a building and, hey, give me a hug. Hey, I feel great. But knowing that's just all another illusion. That's all another part of, it might help the flesh, but it's not going to help me personally. It's not going to help spiritually. It's not going to help that at all. If we live for Yahweh. If we die for Yahweh. These are some great verses, but living these verses is really something else as well. Whether we live or die, we belong to Yahweh. Stephanie had a great, faithful part of her life that she really believed that she was doing this for a reason. She really believed that this was her calling. And so I stood right beside her in this calling. I stood right beside her and praise Yahweh. When I say I did these things, Yahweh gave me the strength. The Ruach gave me the strength, because at times I fell apart. When it would come back, I would fall apart. There was something 2 years ago. Many times we prayed, and everything was better. We again could go and proclaim, we're healed, we're fine, no lumps, no bumps. Her energy, she would push mow the yard. And not because she had to, because she wanted to. She loved to do things and to get accomplishing things. And that one is a really accomplishing thing to her. She could see what she was doing. With all that being said, as these things came back, she would go and make up cards, and whatever the Bible verse was, whatever it was that she got, she would put that out. And about 2 years ago, I believe it was, it came back. You can see it, the blessing of this lymphoma, if that's even what it was you could see it. It was a knot here, it was a knot there, and it exploded. It got really, really big. And we could see it, because if we would not have been able to see that, she would have never done anything. We probably wouldn't have made it that long. But because we could see it, we always tried to find something to make it go away. And at times we did. It's just we couldn't keep it away. But I would attribute that to, just like the enemy, just like this day, I have been wrestling it, like I said, all week long. Could I even deliver this? Could I straight-facedly deliver a message with all the pain and grief? But within that, I hold fast to Yahweh and the Ruach, because I truly hold fast to be absent of this body is to be present with Him. And I just can't imagine of the beauty and the wonder and what she is dealing with now, as opposed to this. And this is not life. This we grow used to, we get used to it being, and we really think we're happy. But imagine those happy spots and those happy times, and how happy we will be when we know nobody's ever going to die, when we know this is never going to be a problem, when we can sit back and go, all those tears and all that death and all that's passed away. But I truly believe, just like Stephanie had to put in that work in that time, that I believe that we have to do what the scriptures say. I believe that we have to take what we know and say, hey, this is what the Father says, and this is what He really wants us to do. And we have to adhere to His will, His work, His way. If He sent His Son and He did those same things, and we know for Him to say, not thy will, not my will, but thy will. And in these times, that's all that I can get through, is not my will, but His will. That these people that are touched, these people that are healed, and I don't understand it. Lean not to your own understanding. When you pray for someone who has breast cancer and they're healed, and 5 years later they're doing fine, and this happens, it's like, hey, I don't knock them whatsoever. Praise Yahweh, they're healed. But there's things that go, what did we do wrong? What did I fail? Did I fail? All these things, and yes, some of that's the enemy. And that's why I definitely see the difference between the Yahad, between what we do, and churchianity. Because, just like I said, in those 2 years past, I would have failed. I would have quit. I would have threw my hands up, because churchianity always told me, you pray and it's one and done. And that's kind of our understanding is when this verse happened. We both believe we're going to pray and this is not going to go any farther. This is going to be one of those things that go away quickly and we're going to have the victory. But within this 4 years of pains and ups and downs and thinking, are we going to make it through the next day? Are we going to make it into this? We relied on, and she definitely relied on the Creator. And she never lost faith in that, what she believed in. For Yahweh himself will come down from heaven with a cloud and command the voice of the archangel with the trumpet of Elohim, and the dead in the Mashiach will rise first. After that, we are still alive and are left will be caught up together with them in the clouds to meet Yahweh in the air. And so we will be with Yahweh forever. So we know, and we have scriptures of what it says that we will do and what we will do forever. Now, the thing about many of these things is, how does that happen? How and what, the transition and all this? Well, I assure you, Stephanie's heart was beating, and I'm getting into Dr. Jackson's things just a little bit here. When I got to the hospital, they said she had quit breathing. They said that her heart had stopped, but they revived her. And she was breathing, and her heart was beating. But Stephanie Holsapple was not there. Her spirit was not there, because when I would walk in the room, she would smile. She would ask me where I'd been, even if it was going to get coffee. Sometimes it was too long. And that's just, the way she was. She really wanted to be together, and just to appease me. Could she do without me? Of course. But just appeasing to her. I appreciate you're here. I appreciate what you've done. I appreciate what you're doing for me. And that meant so much to me, to be recognized as, hey, she does care. It does matter. It does matter what's going on. It does matter what's happening. I do have a point in life, right? I am doing something. And with all this, again, what I'm trying to say is, churchianity failed me, and therefore I would have failed it 2 years ago, because she had her artery wrapped around and she was passing out. And we thought that was the end as well. We couldn't find anybody to do anything. Of course, they wouldn't operate. They wouldn't do anything for her for these reasons. And we thought that was it. And I was crying, I was praying, and I was fasting, and I was like, well, if you don't hear me, then what's the point of this? What am I doing? If I can pray for somebody else and then I can't pray for my own wife, then obviously I'm a failure. I'm doing something wrong. Show it to me. Or, I was ready to throw in the towel, to be honest. She knew this, even though I never said nothing. I would not dare halter her faith or her belief, or want her to dare stumble. And so I kept a lot of that to myself, which was very, very hard to do at points in times. With all that being said, she said, well, you're going to shave your beard off. I know if something happens, you're going to shave your beard off. You're going to cut your hair. You're going to go do this, that, and the other. And I didn't deny it. I'm like, well, life is life, and maybe this and maybe that. But she was healed again. And for about 8 months, Yahweh heard my prayer. He knew in my desperation, in my fever, and in my pride, I was, it was all out. You say, and I say, I stand on the word. I've always stood on the word. If this is true, if I fast and pray, then something's got to happen. I believe in your word, so something's got to happen. It takes time. It's not right now, and sometimes it's not always what we want to hear, what I want to hear. But nonetheless, he answered those prayers and brought me out of that despair and put her up on a pedestal, if you will, for a good 8 months. And we thought it was never coming back. We was great. We was good. But within all this, I've learned life is a vapor. No matter how great it is, no matter how much we think we got, that vapor of this life, that we need to do all that we can. And me personally, I've learned that, I want to be that broken car with the brakes out, the smoke's flying out of it, and you ain't getting any more out of it. There's not another mile we can turn with this car. And that's what I would want to be, what I plan to be in my time here. I plan to do what I can and be what I can that the Creator has put and instilled in me. And again, it's not about me. It's all about the Father. All this is about the Father. I wouldn't be here many times. I thought I was going to be blown away in one war or another, from Desert Storm to Afghanistan. I've had rounds fall really close to me. I've had so many things happen that I'm almost astonished I am still here in some aspects. But I never worried about death. I never worried about dying. I was sometimes, some points, thinking, boy, if something happen, then that would end this and I wouldn't have to deal with it anymore. So I always had the faith in believing where I was going when it was over. But praise the Father, I didn't then, because I don't know if I would have made it. I don't know if that would have been enough. So with all that being said, but now has been revealed by the appearing of our Savior, Yeshua the Messiah, who abolished death and brought life and immortality to light through the gospel. So through what we have, we can know. And I think one of the biggest things too is I talked to my uncle years back, and he just, all the differences, all the things of life and death. You go to one funeral, and this guy was great, that woman was great, they're up in heaven playing a harp, and this person's in the ashes sleeping, taking a nap, and all these differences. It doesn't seem much, but at times like this, I assure you, there's a weighty matter of where do I go from here? How do I live my life? If it's a nap, if it's just all over, if it's 10,000 years from now, what does it matter, as I've heard others say? But if it's really, really upon that last breath, like I said, Stephanie was not there. Her body was obviously there, but her soul, if you will, her essence, I would assure you, was not there, which leads me to believe it was somewhere. It wasn't even sleeping yet. It went somewhere, and I seen it for myself. So with all that being said, I know she went somewhere as opposed to went to sleep. I know that she don't have to deal with this. I know that all these things I can assure others of saying. With all that being said, I think we would live our life differently if we knew how close. One of those old videos used to have the like a timestamp on people's heads, and praise the Father we don't, because, if you looked up and seen an hour left, what would you do? If you looked up and seen 12 days left, how would we do? So it's a blessing, I believe, that in passing, how that happens for us as others. Someone told me, we don't mourn as the pagans do, and I truly don't. I don't mourn. It's not a question of where she is. It's not a question, did she do enough? The question is, it just hurts. It just hurts because my life partner, my friend, my, helpmeet is now no longer here. The numbers for the Yahad she written down here for me. The little things that notes and all these things are still there. But who instilled that? I would say the Father from the beginning, just like he said, let what he has joined together, let no man tear asunder. And truly no man tore that asunder. So I would just want everyone to know that only we can separate from the Father. No matter death, life, no matter what's going on, only we can say, that's enough, I don't want no more. But in the deep, desperate hours, and sometimes if you're like me, you push people away. I don't know if it's from the wars or from the this or from the churchianity, beat up, kick out, left foot of fellowship or what, but many times I've been fed up with those things, and I believe that's a way of the enemy, just like today. What would we do if we don't have each other? What are we going to do if we can't fellowship, if we can't assemble together, if we can't do what he says to do? I say many fall to the wayside. Many are just like, well, they didn't care. They didn't, they didn't stand up for me. They didn't do this for me. And it's just another device, I would say, of how the enemy will use something that can be so small. And as men, we're men. We stand up. I've been to war. People come And they're like, what's wrong with this guy? You know, you've been to war. And it's like, that is a totally different story than losing my spouse. At war, like I said, if I would have been shot, I'd been like, I get that. This, it's hard to understand. It's hard to go through. But when I go through the scriptures and I know that she has gained, I'm the one who's lost. I'm the one that now is looking forward and should have more incentive to live my life correctly as to throw it in the tubes, as to throw it away and say, well, that didn't work, so I throw it all away. Then I believe I'm not going to have that resurrecting power, right? Maybe I'll be the guy sitting there screaming and crying and wishing I did something different. And I don't want that. I want to be with the Creator who never intended for us to die in the first place. I know a lot of people I've talked to, they get angry because of death. They get angry especially when their children die, 16, 15, 7, burn up in a fire, and horrendous things I've heard. And it's not his fault. It was never his intention. It was never his plan. He always wanted to be with us. That's the sad part of all this, and what I think that the churchianity just turns a blind eye to is it's you got a friend, you know, it's a friend, and you put him in your back pocket when you need him. It's like Monopoly, get out of jail free, and everything's a free pass. But life does not work this way. It does not work that way at all, and we can see truly we're all going to have to go of that way. It's just a matter of what road we choose, and truly it's our choice. Sadly, you know, it's sadly our choice that we either go and do what he tells us to do, or we don't do what he tells us to do. He will swallow up death for all time, and Yahweh our Elohim will wipe away tears from all our faces, and he will remove the reproach from him people from all the earth, for Yahweh has spoken it. And when I read this, when I look at this, I think the reproach, yes, we, unfortunately, sadly, are a reproach. People that have the nerve to come and say, well, the law is the reason why, that curse is the reason why. They don't have the education and the proper knowledge to know she's sweet, she's forever. It's now, and it's this. The law only does what the law could ever do. It leads us, guides us, and directs us. You know, the dad, if he's a good dad, can only do so much with a son. You can only tell your child, you can only tell your daughter, you can only instruct them. And at a certain point, they're going to grow up and they're going to live their life. They're going to do what they do. They're going to be who they are. As much as that pains us, as much as it says, you know, don't do this, don't be a part of that. As much as all that becomes, we can't help it. So in these times, I look to the Father and I think, wow, I understand to a point again of how you want us to live, how you want us to love. And no matter what we're going through, the best thing I can do is be in a fellowship, to be in the Yahad, to be a part of something greater than me. Because at times, you know, when people are being healed and everything's going great and you're on top of the mountain, it's like, wow, here I am, super prophet, right? Nothing can be, you're ready to go walk on water. And that has a time and a purpose and a place. We know that, right? We know, and I think you perform great in those aspects. But what really proves who you are is when you walk through the valley of death. When your friends are mocking and laughing and churchianity is spitting upon you and you're going through the gallows going, Father, I need you. You know, Father, this is ugly. I never thought it would come to this, to understand. But when we read about the apostles, his disciples, he said, come and follow me, and they did. And look at what they got. Look at the deserving. They didn't get new cars. They didn't get a new donkey. You know, nobody brought them a black stallion and said, hey, brother, thanks for your healing me. Thanks for, you know, hey, thanks for that eyesight. Thanks for raising me from the dead. Thanks for all this. And by the way, here's a little portion of gladness for you. We know it's not like that. It's almost the opposite. It's like when you're down, the enemy wants to dogpile you and treat you terrible, and in hopes that you will give up, in hopes that you will fold like a lawn chair. And at certain times, it seems like that's the only option, sadly. At certain times, it seems like if you don't help me out, then, I don't know how I'm going to get through it. But we also stand with these scriptures that he says he will. When we're weak, he is strong. Hosea 13:14, shall I ransom them from the power of Sheol? Shall I redeem them from death? O death, where are your thorns? O Sheol, where is your sting? Compassion will be hidden from my sight. And in all this, again, what I really, truly feel is not the death sting, not thorns, not even though it took many years. There was great moments. There was blessings. Yahweh blessed me with someone that half her life was spent with me. That's, it's amazing that I can see that, and it was such a blessing. It was such a thing that, and the good times and the different, we went to places and they didn't much care for what we believed in, but they invited us. But she was always faithful and true. She wore a head covering because of Corinthians. She believed in the head covering very much. And it was amazing because almost everywhere we went, other than like the synagogues or somewhere like that, you could see them, 2 or 3 women would get together and come try to take her in the other room, and I would just kind of snicker, kind of just get my laugh, like, you don't know, they, for some reason, thought it was me telling her. They had no idea that was her and what she believed in and what, the power of the angels and all that. So it was almost funny to watch them try to convince her of otherwise, knowing she was going to take them and try to convince them of the Messiah and all the things that she had learned, which was a great attribute of her life. 1 Corinthians 15, 24-26. Then comes the end, when he hands over the kingdom to the Elohim and the Father, when he has abolished all rule and all authority and power, for he must reign until he has put all his enemies under his feet. The last enemy that will be abolished is death. Death, as we see, is our enemy. It's a good thing we see through scriptures, but it is one of the things that he never wanted. He never wanted us to die. He never wanted Adam to die. He never wanted Eve to die. I don't believe he gains any pleasure, just like it's written, that for us to perish or to pass on. But at the same time, within that, he flips that, if you will, into eternity. So in short, Yahweh says you're going to live forever, and he made it so, and he made man, and he made woman, and you're going to live forever. And by the way, I didn't change my mind. You're going to live forever. But in this thing that we know is life, in this thing that we've been shown is life, is what we have to deal with until that time. But knowing our greatest accomplishment is the ending. Our greatest accomplishment is going and doing these things. Therefore, since the children share in flesh and blood, he himself likewise also partook of the same, that through death he might render powerless he whom had the power of death, that is, the devil. And that is a rejoicing moment for me, so much so that he took the keys to power. He took that death away, that I could rejoice this day, that we can rejoice, that we can know that others that went on, and those when they do go on, we can rejoice that they're forevermore. They're eternal and not temporary. But within all that, we know, and we have to understand that we're still left in the fight. And I truly believe that this fight is a daily, hourly, monthly, yearly fight And I personally have had a horrendous life, if you will. Yes, I've been blessed. Yes, I've had all these different, many things happen. But at the same time, through the stinging, different Desert Storm, Afghanistan, Bosnia, Glamock, sicknesses, watching the children be sick and watching Stephanie be sick and just all the different things that without understanding this life is going to pass and it is a vapor, it's a bad, it's a bad day. But looking forward to the ending and knowing that's better than the beginning, I believe that's where a lot of people miss the mark. I believe that's where sometimes we forget of what's going on. I'll do a few more in closing here. Fight the good fight of faith. Lay hold on eternal life, whereunto thou art also called, and hast professed a good profession before many witnesses. And again, many witnesses. We have been from UAB in Alabama to MD Anderson in Texas to St. Barnes in St. Louis, Missouri, Jackson, Mississippi, UMMC, and many places across the coast, the Air Force Base. Many witnesses have had the choice, if you will. Many witnesses have seen her perseverance, her pushing forward, her professing. She wore t-shirts and, she had all these things that she did with Yahweh and the Paleo Hebrew and all these things that she wanted to let others know of who her Elohim truly was. And that was just a great attribute of many witnesses of these things. And at many points in times, again, the fight is real, I believe. The fight is, I don't know if I can put a word on it, that it's just, sometimes it's so hard to be down in the trenches. But he also says he wouldn't put any more upon us than we can bear. So I truly believe that she really, really went through a lot. And I truly believe the last shall be first. I truly believe that crown of life and the riches forevermore. I truly believe these things with all my heart. And that's why I can sit before you today and not be crying and boo-hooing or going to jump off a bridge in Brooklyn or somewhere, right? Because I believe that she is okay. Now it's up to us, the land of the living, if you will, to put all these delusions and all these things and all these other enemy propaganded things. And why do they matter? There's so many things that we've seen in these last 4 years that have just mind-boggling to me personally. It's like, I don't understand why it even mattered, especially in the face of death. It's like, well, if you're in the face of death, what does this matter? What does that matter? Why does this? It doesn't matter, right? What really matters is the lifelong journey and the lifelong go and the ending. And that's what we really was trying to make sure we had secured. A Psalm of David, plead my cause, O Yahweh, with them that strive with me. Fight against them that fight against me. Because truly in this world, in some aspects, they want us to be a pawn. They want us to be powerless. They want us to have no say-so in what we say, what we do. Praise Yahweh that we had a lot of say-so in what we did, how we handled this, and how she personally handled it, what she ate, what she drank, and how she lived her life, as opposed to what others would have and what they would have done. Even into the end, that she was supposed to be doing radiation this week. And she said, no, none of that. That burns. I've had enough of that road. Either it's going to be this way or that way. And your body wears out. It just wears down. It takes its toll on all these different things. And the pain and the aggravation. She had dreams and she had many things and many aspects of life of all this. I'll do two more and I close it up. And I hope I'm making sense because I'm kind of here, there, everywhere. But this fight of life is a real fight. Nevertheless, Josiah would not turn his face from him, but disguised himself that he might fight with him. And he hearkened not unto the words of Necho from the mouth of Elohim, and came to fight in the valley of Megiddo. When I read this again, I was thinking, sometimes these battles, and we see through the scripture, the battles and the fighting is where a lot of this is at. But a lot of times, again, the battles and the fighting is left to Yahweh and Yahweh alone. He is the one that says yea or nay. He is the one that says you're going to win or you're going to lose. You're going to come through this victorious or it's not going to be so pretty. So within all these battles of these things called life, again, I think we need to hold on to the ending is better than the beginning. The ending, as long as we know. I just couldn't imagine what I would do if I didn't rest assured that where she was and that she is eternal. I don't think I could deal with this way whatsoever if I didn't have the faith and know that she had the faith and know that she just left. There was no pain, screaming, hollering. There was no longevity of another month in the hospital or another week or it just went quickly, so quickly that I didn't even really get to say goodbye. I said, I love you. She said, I love you too. And that was that. I was getting clothes, I was getting things, but just that quick, it was over. Looking back, seeing pictures, seeing things, I think we knew what was happening, but our battle was no. Not I, not me, not her, not this, not now. But he has blessed us with these 4 years of ups and downs. He has blessed me truly with having her to be my wife. In closing, and the multitude of all the nations that fight against Ariel, even all that fight against her and her munition, and that distress her shall be as a dream of a night vision. So again, to fight against the enemy, but to fight against the appointed time is null and void. We all know there's an appointed time. We all know there's going to be a day when we're called home. So make the best of this thing called life. And truly, I would ask you and beg of you to truly come to the Father. Come to him on his terms. Come to him while you can and lay it at his feet. Come to the Messiah and just give it to him, whether it's death, life, anger. There's so many things that happens in life, and I can't tell you why other than the enemy. The enemy has many demonic people that do many horrific, terrible things, and things fly out of their mouth that you wouldn't expect. But that's not of the Father. Fear is not of Yahweh. He wants us all to come home. He wants us all to live eternal. And I truly believe that with all my heart. And I truly want to thank you all for listening. And I want to give him all the praise and honor and the glory for having Stephanie Holsapple to be my wife, our children, and our loving times together. Shalom. Love y'all. Yahweh bless.
Thank you, Brother Holsapple.
Yes.
Truly appreciate that. It always comes, even before all this, it always comes from the heart when how you teach and preach.